Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to another edition of our Future of webinar. We are now on episode 6 as of today. This has been such an incredibly fun panel to prep for. I happen to be someone who's very much into founder stories. And these founders all have some really terrific stories that I think you'll find just as eye-opening as I have. Two of the people who you're about to meet sit on advisory councils here at the college. One is also an alum of the college. And I say that only just to sort of point out that this is a focus of ours here at FIDM. We are interested in startups. We love the founder culture and supporting founders as they get started. One of the founders you are about to meet is Brittany Finkel. She found a white space to start a business in, and so she launched what she calls Happily Ever Borrowed, for a bride to borrow all of her accessories as she gets ready for her wedding day. And she's now running it as a side hustle. So we'll talk to her a little bit about that perspective and approach. We're also going to speak with Trinidad Garcia. He's a veteran who then decided to attend FIDM and crafted what I can only describe as a masterful marketing plan. I don't know that he's always felt that way, and I'll ask him a little bit more about that. But about a year ago, he wasn't doing so great. COVID hits and everything turns around. So it's a different story than you might anticipate hearing. And then we'll also, and one other thing to mention about Trinidad and his line, Trinidad 3, is that it's going to be available in the near future on Nordstrom.com. Our venture capitalist we're going to speak to this hour is Lizzie Francis. She's had a fantastic career as a chief marketing officer at Textile, then at the Gilt Group. She then co-founded one venture firm and is now working with her second. We're going to start, though, this hour with Indy Lee. Indy was diagnosed with a brain tumor and told that the cause of this tumor was environmental, not genetic. And maybe the cause could have potentially been the beauty products that she was using. So 6 months to live, she decides to launch a beauty brand under her own name. And thankfully, she has lived much longer than those 6 months. And multiples of it later is able to join us today. Indy, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start by asking you the same question, and I'm going to point out that I will ask each of our founders this exact same question when we get going. What is the secret sauce to the success you've attained so far?
Oh gosh, I think for me, it's a couple of things. It's one, staying authentic, right, to the brand and why I started it, which was to empower others to live their healthiest life. Never getting complacent, for sure. And I do believe this was like a mission for me, and my mission is to do just that. And so complacency is not an option. And I used to say that failure is not an option. And what I've learned is that it's okay. That thought that you should never fail, it's not right. And I don't think that the culture that we're trying to create from it is one that's real. And I think the truth is learning to fail fast and then move on, right? And learn from it. And the wins, you celebrate hard, and then you move on. And it's just keep on going.
So beyond the amazing story of your founding, the impetus of your business obviously was your health. I want to talk about those first years. You're dealing with a health concern, but you're also now dealing with founding a business. What was that like?
I was really lucky. Obviously, happy ending. I'm here almost 12 years later. But when I first started and started formulating, that was just it. I was given 6 months, and I said, oh my gosh, this could be something I was putting on my skin. I wanted to create this line. I wanted to create something that was clean, that was safe, that was beautiful on a shelf, that was effective, but I wanted to empower. And when you're given 6 months to live, you could decide how you're going to spend it. And I started really what I call concocting and creating the brand. And I had a couple of products that I had developed. And I'll never forget waking up on April 22nd, 2009, and flipping the switch a month later. But what I realized is you can build it, but they don't always come. And then the real work started, which is to understand there's so much more than just creating products, what goes into marketing yourself and a brand, and how social media plays into it, and press, etc.
It's interesting that you talk about the press. I'm going to table that because I think that's an interesting conversation to dive into with you. Well, actually, no, it is my next question as I'm looking at my notes. So let's go right into it. So is it true, did I read this, or maybe you even told this to me, you only started paying for marketing 2 years ago?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
And you're how old is the company at this point?
Well, it started in 2010 officially. So we're 10 years in, and that's just it. When you're starting, and I wasn't invested in, this was every dollar we made, we put right back into the company. I mean, I think I told you, I started this with pretty much no money. I sold all my jewelry to start it and then emptied my 401k and put a lot of money on credit cards. But I wasn't until we were invested in that we had that type of money to start doing paid ads. So prior to that, it was really, I would say, a groundswell. It was social media and it was press. And that's how we really got ourselves marketed. And really so lucky that the beauty industry truly embraced me and embraced what we were doing. And as a result, the brand became better known, et cetera. And now we're on the shelves all over, which I'm thrilled, but that also helped. But no, did not do paid marketing until about 2 years ago. It's unbelievable. Maybe even less.
We showed that full screen a second ago, and I wonder if we can pull that back up, because it shows sort of the diversity of places that you got press. It wasn't just influencers, which I think anybody breaking into the industry would think, oh, beauty, influencer. Instead, you also did, I think we showed Forbes. I pulled an article that you were featured on ABC affiliate in Chicago. Yep. And then I think another from the industry. So how were you getting all of this coverage? What were you doing to generate that kind of PR?
Well, I have to give a lot of love to my press, my PR team, my comms team, which now is in-house, and they're phenomenal, which has really allowed us to go after the type of press that we're wanting. And really, instead of just product roundups, which are wonderful, but some things, a little bit more, I would say, profile pieces. But where the Forbes one came in and the Beauty Insider, those came to us. I have been so, like I said, I've been really blessed that press has come to us. We have had some incredible PR firms that we have worked with, prior to bringing press in-house that have come to us. And I will tell you, we have actually never paid an influencer as well. So the influencers who do, post about us, it has been all organic, which I'm truly proud of.
That has been something I have been talking about for so long in the classroom. Do not pay influencers. Yeah. I am a firm believer in it, because it degrades the value of what the influencer is saying about you, and then the value of what you're getting back from the influencer when they're talking about you, because then it says it's an ad.
Well, and that's just it. And you know what? It's a weird little dance. But, on the other hand, I realize that these are content creators. These aren't easy. I mean, as someone who's now doing so much content, this is a lot of work. And there is value to the work that they're doing. So how can you work with them differently rather than just paying for a post? Mm-hmm. But are there affiliate programs? Is this really a brand ambassador where you're really, creating financial incentives for them? Because I do understand that this is their job and there is value in what they're doing. It's just how you go about doing it. We have not gone that route yet, but we have affiliate programs, but we are now looking at, okay, what does a brand ambassador program, more of a long-term ambassador program look like as we work with content creators, realizing that, listen, it's not easy. I give them so much credit. I mean, me just creating an video every Monday is like, oh my gosh.
You talk about not being easy and the whole notion of money making, and it reminds me of what you said to me, I think a week or two ago, where you didn't take a salary for 7 years.
Yep.
So not only did you cash in everything and charge your credit cards to the hilt, you also didn't take a salary.
No.
So why take that salary at some point? And it just brings up questions of financing as well. But so what was the decision to finally take a salary? Let's start there.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, in the beginning, there's a limited amount. I mean, as you know, prior to this, I'm a CPA. Went to accounting, went to school for accounting, got my CPA, worked for HBO, had a great career in finance. So I understood the finance of it. And I understood that I couldn't afford to take money out if I wanted to create products. It's expensive. It's expensive to have a creative designer who's going to create these beautiful vessels that you want to have on your shelf. Believe me, we tried to do it the other way and it didn't work. I always said we were eco chic. We were very eco, which is fine, but it wasn't on brand. And that's something that's so important too, is that what you're saying you are needs to match with how you look. But no, we just didn't have the money. And so every dollar we made, we poured back into the company to grow it. But then it got to the point in 2017 where I was like, all right, I've now put a lot of money on credit cards. There is no 401k. I've got no jewelry. And I said, I've got kids who need to go to college. What's going on here? And more important than that, Tom, is I needed to scale. And I didn't have the money to scale or the expertise in the beauty industry because I didn't come from beauty. And so that was truly the impetus for saying to the universe, I need capital and I need somebody to come in. And in 2017, I was truly, truly blessed that Ancora came in. And for me, it wasn't just about bringing in money. And I know that's something that people are trying to always wonder, like, when do you bring it in? How do you bring it in? And for me, it wasn't just cash. Because, I could have mortgaged my house. I'm sure nobody would have noticed that. No, I'm just kidding. Right now, my family's like, oh, God. But I knew I needed the experience and the know-how. And Encore brought just that, the cash and the know-how. And it was a match made in heaven. I always say that my best day before I had that investment my worst day now is far better than my best day before I had capital. It's just been that good. And I know that's not always the experience when you have people invest in, but I always say, be really, really cautious and know who you're getting into bed with.
I wonder about what you gave up to take on that capital. But I wonder if it's also wrapped in what will be my last question for this part of talking to you, there's always this question that I think founders have to consider as they're building their company. And I think it is so important that it is in the back of your mind, what am I in this for? Like, how am I going to exit from this? And so I wonder, and does it relate to Ancora at all, is what was and or is your exit plan?
Yeah, and Tom, that's a great question. And I will always tell people, when you said, what do you want? Do you want a very large piece of a small pie where you're not necessarily reaching your mission? Or do you want a smaller piece of a much bigger pie where you're getting to live the legacy that you wanted to? And that was it for me. I wanted to leave this legacy of change. And I knew I need to give in order to get that. And I used to say that when people say, what's your exit strategy? I used to say, on a stretcher, dead. Because I just wanted to continue to go and go and go. And I love, love, love what I get to do every day. But I know that when you bring private equity on and investors on, there's an out plan. I mean, they want to get their money back. And so you really have to look at, what is that exit strategy going to look like? And for me, it's just hoping that I can be a part of this company for as long as humanly possible. Because again, I love what I do. But I have to be a realist and see, what that looks like down the road. Fortunately, I don't have to make that decision right now, but you do have to realize that at some point when people do invest, there is an exit strategy. And seeing how you can be a part of it, I think, is part of that planning that goes into it.
And just to check on you, because I think at least the few times I've heard you speak, I've always wanted somebody to ask this question. Your health now is fine. You have recovered from what was supposed to be a deadly tumor.
Yes, so I was given 6 months to live. They said it could have been environmental. Nobody will ever know what it is. Everybody goes, what ingredient was it? Nobody will ever know. Just like people won't know definitively, if it wasn't cancer, but if somebody has cancer. I feel fantastic. They successfully removed the tumor, but I always tell people I have another brain tumor. I was diagnosed with it a year after my first one removed, and I affectionately called it Hermione, the heroine from Harry Potter, and I plan to live a very long life, beautiful life with it, but it reminds me never to get complacent, ever. And that you have to play full out in life because it's not a dress rehearsal.
I appreciate you so much. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to step aside for a moment and we'll come back for a Q&A shortly. As I welcome Brittany Finkel to join us and turn her camera on, I wanna remind everyone that you can submit a question via the Q&A button at the very bottom. We've set aside about 15 minutes toward the end of our hour together to begin a conversation and welcome some of your questions. Brittany, I think there you are. I couldn't find you on my screen. On my screen, there's so many squares. So there you are on my screen. I wanna ask you the same question that I started with Indy, and that is, what is the secret sauce to the success you've attained so far?
Yeah, so thank you for having me, first of all. And my secret sauce has always been really networking and education, self-education. So when I first started the business about 9 years ago, I literally attended 2 to 3 meetups per week. I don't even know if Meetup exists anymore, but it was literally just a space to talk to other entrepreneurs, other people starting ideas, people in the fashion industry, people not in the fashion industry, people in the tech industry. I really just wanted to immerse myself in everything that I needed to know about starting a business. And I wasn't afraid to share my ideas and get feedback. I even attended classes at General Assembly, which was in New York City, and they have, you could pay to just kind of pick and choose random different topics that you want to learn about, like raising capital or, you know, coding even. So I took so many different classes. I watched so many YouTube videos. I Googled so many things and talked to so many people before starting my business. So I really think having all of that preparation and just talking about it to as many people as possible is what helped me kind of craft the business to what it is today.
I hear what you're saying about learning, but I also wonder, you know, I'm somebody who comes from design thinking, right? And for me, that means, what is your problem statement? And usually it's something that you've experienced. It's a user-based error that you're finding in your own experience of life. So what was the problem statement you found to start your company?
So for me, when I was first looking into starting my business, I had 3 sisters. They were getting married. I was a fashion design major at Cornell University. And at first my sisters asked me, can you design my wedding dress? And I said, absolutely not. That's way too much pressure, but I will help you go shopping. And when I went shopping with them, I was kind of shocked at how expensive all these accessories were, sometimes even more expensive than the dress itself. And so after you spend your whole budget on your dress, then suddenly you realize you have a veil and a headpiece and jewelry and all these other things that you need to wear for your wedding day. And I was just thrown off by the fact that you're spending so much money on something that you're only wearing once. So that problem really stuck in my head for a long time. And I didn't start Happily Ever Borrowed until about 2 years out of college. But that was kind of the problem statement that I was thinking of when I first conceptualized the ideas, is why are these items so expensive that you can only wear once? And why are they even costing sometimes more than the dress? And there's way less emotional attachment to these accessories than there are the dress themselves. So that was kind of how the idea materialized, and that's what I was really trying to fix.
You started to get some traction for your business. And I want to draw the parallel between you and Indy, and I'm going to draw the same parallel when we start talking to Trinidad, because I think it's so significant. There, you get traction how? What did you do to get traction?
So I think that PR was a huge help, and kind of like Indy, I've never paid for PR actually, and a lot of it just kind of happened naturally. But I send out a lot of cold emails to different bridal magazines or different publications and just said, I'm the only one doing this. I think brides need to know about it, and here's why I think you should speak about it. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But most of the time, exactly like Indy said, I'm not even aware of the fact that I'm being written up at this point. Like, it's just kind of snowballed and people research. And I'm honestly very shocked that still there's not many other companies that have tried to compete and do bridal rental accessories. So it's given us a lot of opportunity to be an individual in the space and really get a lot of PR over time. However, one thing that I did work really hard on is we currently have a partnership with Rent the Runway, where we're their exclusive vendor for bridal accessories. And during a time of when I was actually working full-time on the business, I really hustled to talk to them and saw that they had this space where they weren't renting a ton of bridal accessories, and knew that if we could, you know, they already had an audience of women who were excited to rent and already had the proof of concept. So if we could be a part of their life cycle in terms of when they have their wedding and be able to rent through them, then it would be a very clear way for us to get some traction to our site, if not directly through Rent the Runway. So that has been a huge success for us since it started a couple of months ago.
Which is interesting that happens in the midst of COVID, which is kind of what I want to chat about next, is what this year has meant for you, because right now you are sitting in Portland. Mm-hmm. What, about a year ago you were in New York City?
Yes.
So walk us through this last year and what you've learned, because there's some really interesting lessons from it.
Yeah, really, the last 2 years has been very interesting. My husband got his dream job at Nike, which moved us out to Portland, Oregon in January of 2019. And I was working remotely for a while. I was working for Chanel previously. And I really wanted to give myself 6 months to fully dedicate myself to my business, because this entire time, over 9 years, I had always worked on Happily Ever Borrowed as a side hustle. And I really wanted the opportunity to just take that full-time moment to dive in. And honestly, it was great. I did finally pay for some social media marketing, which was great. I was able to dedicate all of this time to the business, and it did grow. And then COVID happened. And for, I would say, about 2 months, we were just radio silence. Nobody was getting married. Everything got canceled, which was heartbreaking for so many people. But around May, it really started to pick up again, and women were rescheduling their weddings or having smaller weddings, and people were looking to save money at this point because there's obviously a lot going on in the economy and people's jobs. So our business has never been better, which is crazy to think about. I feel for all of our brides who have had to reschedule their weddings 2 or even 3 times sometimes now. But it's been quite a journey. But also about at the beginning of COVID in April, I also took a job at Nike because I couldn't resist that corporate fashion life. It sucks me in every time. And so now Happily Ever Borrowed is a side hustle again.
Talk to me a little bit about funding, and if you've had challenges as it relates to getting funding to help you scale, to pay for, like you were mentioning, social media marketing. It is not cheap. So
No, it's
where is the challenge you've confronted in that space?
So for bridal specifically, it's very difficult because usually people are looking to, get a cost per acquisition, and you spend a lot of money upfront to capture that customer. And then over time, you have multiple orders. For us, fingers crossed, you're only getting married once. So we need to capture you, and then that's it. And, that is honestly why the wedding industry is so expensive, because you only have this one moment to capture that customer and get as much money as you can out of them, which is the antithesis of what we stand for. Our plan is to be more environmentally friendly and to be more cost effective for brides and to not waste money on things you can only wear once. So that dichotomy has made it very difficult for us to raise institutional funding. But you really do need it in order to scale. So it's been kind of this back and forth of how much to spend to acquire versus how much does it really make sense, knowing that you're really only this one-time use item.
That is the interesting dilemma of every founder, especially in your space. And it's interesting because I had never really considered it as it relates to bridal and only that one-time use. Yeah. Your lifetime value is that one time.
Exactly.
So
that's why weddings are so expensive.
which now explains everything about that, right? Like for those who are of the age who are looking to get married now, get ready. Does that then mean you are content with this as a side hustle? Like you see it going no grander, no scale?
I think at this point in my life, I am. I think everyone's life changes over times, and you have different periods of life where you need that, you have that like insane drive and hustle to go, and sometimes you need to take a step back. And I think for me, moving across the country, starting a new job, redoing our house, getting a puppy has kept us pretty busy. And then at the same time, still running Happily Ever Borrowed as it's still continuing to grow this year, which is great. So for me, I do feel really comfortable in keeping this a side hustle. And, that's kind of the message I wanted to share today too, is that it's okay. You don't need this to be your full-time job. It doesn't have to be your end all be all. And, I'm a risk averse person who, like I said, gets sucked into that corporate fashion culture that I love and can't get away from. So I want people to understand that there's a way to still run a business and have a lifestyle where it just brings you joy and some money to help with, whatever you want in your life, but it doesn't have to be your career.
That big remodel and the puppy,
exactly.
The dog's got to eat something.
It pays for a lot of furniture right now.
Let me ask you the same last question I asked Indy, and then I will ask Trinidad next, is what's your exit strategy?
Initially, I wanted to be acquired by Rent the Runway, do some sort of like acqui-hire, but as I think their business has evolved and changed through COVID and they've had some difficult times, I think weddings and bridal is not really where they want their focus to be. I still think it's a possibility, but honestly, I would love someday to just sell the business to someone who's ready to kind of take it to the next level. And I know that when you put in that funding and that work, that this business is scalable and can grow. So finding the right person to do that would be my ultimate dream.
Awesome. Okay. So we'll have you pause for a moment, and then I want to introduce Trinidad Garcia, who is a FIDM alum. The interesting juxtaposition here is going from Indy, who has turned this into a full-time gig, to Brittany, whose business is turned into a side hustle, to Trinidad, who's on his way from sort of side hustle, but not really, to really now this is going to be your primary driver. Trinidad, thank you for joining us. I will ask you the same first question. What is your secret sauce?
Hello, Tom. Thanks for having me. And the secret sauce for me was very similar to Indy, and that's finding purpose. And my purpose, that's what keeps me going every day. My mission is to power veterans. And I found that purpose as a student there at FIDM. When I was going there, I was the president of the SVA chapter, and I was still on active duty, mind you, at the time. When I was a student there in the beginning, and I saw some of the student veterans struggling. And then I would jokingly say that if I'm doing my job right, when I get out, I would, have a place or a group that I can connect with and ease my transition. And I did get out. I ended up hitting a wall, and thank God the SVA was there, the FIDM family, the whole community, because a big part of it was integrating with civilians. So that's one big thing I really strive to do, and that helped me get through. So that's what keeps me going every single day, is I found a purpose that's greater than myself.
Let me ask you this question, and while I totally appreciate that, this purpose is greater than you, and you decide, I'm gonna go into denim, which is not an uncrowded space. There's a lot of folks competing in denim. Why do you think you're bringing something totally different to this space?
I always pick the hardest thing to do. When I joined the military, of course, I joined the Marines. My dad was in the Air Force, and he was like, man, why'd you do that? Why'd you pick the toughest branch? I like taking on challenges. And in that space, I felt that because it was a sea of blue, there was a really good chance that I could, stick out because of my purpose and my mission. It was a lot bigger. And with a lot of divisions that are happening through politics and just a lot of stuff going on in the world, I just felt that denim can really unify people. And it's one of the most iconic American pieces. And that's why I picked it, because I feel it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. I guarantee you that most of them are wearing jeans. So it's a good starting point.
I've heard you say that the denim space has also grown a little less crowded in COVID. And
Yes,
I'd like to kind of dive in there, because similar to Brittany, you also have done well in the COVID days. So how you didn't anger the gods while the rest of us did, I'm not really sure, but I'm wondering if you have a theory on this. Why do you think you're doing so well in spite of COVID when so many else are failing?
I think it's because I just stuck to what I believed in from early on. And so when you have a mission and a purpose, doesn't matter what's going on, you keep pushing forward. And I think because in the denim industry, there's a lot of overseas manufacturing, and there's obviously supply chain problems. It opened up an opportunity for us that are manufactured here in the US and source everything here locally. And so just structurally, I think it created some opportunities. And it was also when everybody was hit, we released a small collection to support, we called it the COVID relief collection. A lot of people in the industry were, they knew, they said, you're crazy. Like, how do you release during like the worst economic time in US history? Because they were saying that week it was like D-Day. And if you remember not too long ago, yeah, I mean, everything was on a downtick, and we sold jeans that week. And we were told that if we can sell that week, we can sell at any time. So I just kept pushing.
Which you've clearly been able to do, which of course is quite impressive. But part of being able to sell was also you described it to me the other day as luck. I would say that it's because you actually put foot to the ground and done the work to get there. You had a specific thing happen with a UFC fight. I wonder if you can tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that story.
Once again, we've been working with, there's Tony Ferguson. So during COVID, it was the first sport that came back, and the main event was Tony Ferguson. And I had the opportunity to address him on media day, and that's him walking out to the media portion of it. He's also wearing a mask that I made, and it was just we got such high visibility because it was the only show in town, and also he wore it during the face-off. So I designed a jean and a jacket for him, and I mean, he had the belt on and yeah, just walked up. So it got us tremendous amount of press. But again, it helped us really get to a lot of people that we are trying to reach in our mission. Because for veterans, isolation, quarantine that's the worst thing you can do to a veteran that has PTSD. And so during that time, it was just, it was awesome. We were able to get their attention and inspire them.
And it just wasn't an accident. I mean, that's what's so interesting about this story to me. Let's show the picture of your Airstream. And as we show it, describe what you do with this Airstream and how it has been part of your marketing plan from the beginning.
Right from the start. Well, when I was a student at FIDM and I decided I wanted to have my own brand, as a designer, you want to be in a store. So I just built my own store and fulfilled that. So I was like, there it is. And then the next step was to a lot of people thought it was brilliant, but it's just really basic. I just made product, put it in my store, and went out to where people gathered. And I only started off with a few pieces, and I was selling my homework at the Rose Bowl. So Amanda Starling, over at FIDM, I pissed her off a few times. So she finally told me, like, stop selling your homework. You need something to turn in. And I would show her like the pictures and the receipts and stuff. And so, but yeah, at the very end, it was a very pivotal and important piece of it. And then you'll see the LA fingers on there. So I had a chance to shoot with Esteban Oriol, who during the pandemic, he released his movie LA Originals on Netflix. So then we got another uptick in sales because we were also had a little collab and we're selling his t-shirts out of the trailer. But because of the pandemic, we had to really focus more on our digital platform because I was doing everything like super old school. And so because of that, I transitioned more to digital. And then we started moving into the wholesale space. So on March 4th, I was in Seattle, had a meeting with Nordstrom buyers March 5th. And then they called me at 4:30 in the afternoon on the 4th and said my appointment was canceled due to COVID. So it was, something that I had dreamed, worked really hard, spent everything I had to get to that point. And then COVID hit. And luckily, Merging Bets and Players had meetings up in Seattle. It's an organization I'm a part of. And the co-founder, Nate Boyer, was up there and he supported me through that and through that time. And I just kept pushing. There he is. There's Nate Boyer, incredible human being.
So everybody knows exactly who this is. This is the person who is credited with suggesting to Colin Kaepernick to take a knee. He's also a veteran who is an NFL player who suggested Colin Kaepernick takes the knee. So of course he also has been getting some press this year, which is what we're looking at, right?
Right. And that's when I knew I had to get my website up and running. Really tight because he was on CBS on the morning news, and he was wearing Trinidad 3 Jeans T-shirt, and we had over 1,000 people go to the website like within minutes of this happening. So again, it was something that, and those that don't know Nate Boyer, Army Green Beret, played for University of Texas, and then got drafted to the Seattle Seahawks. and he wrote an open letter to Colin Kaepernick, and he was the guy that walked out with Colin the first time Colin took a knee, and he stood next to him. And so I just really believed in his approach and his stance, which is why we serve for freedom of speech. And it just so happens that, during COVID, the Black Lives Matter movement started, and then, we were able to talk about other issues and support each other throughout the way. So I was pretty stoked about that.
I want to ask you the same last question I have asked everybody else, and that is, what is your exit strategy?
My exit strategy, the mission will never change. Exit strategy, I just want to be able to fund a veteran center and continue my mission, work with organizations. And it's pretty incredible where I'm at right now. So the exit strategy, obviously in business, most people say, all right, it's time to sell. And you kind of walk into the sunset. For me, I've certainly considered that down the line, but I mean, I'm someone that powers veterans and just happens to make good jeans, really good jeans, right? So I don't know. I may just follow the Godfather Adriano Goldschmied's way and sell, but continue to be around, hang around the hoop and help others out.
Excellent. Thank you. I just want to remind everybody as we get ready to introduce Lizzie that these are shortened versions of their stories. And if there's something else you want us to ask, please make sure you use that Q&A button at the bottom. And we'll definitely get to other points of Trinidad's and the rest stories, because they're also very, very compelling. So thank you, Trinidad, for joining us this afternoon. I did want to introduce our last guest for the hour, who is Lizzie Francis. Lizzie is a partner at M13, which is a venture capital firm. Before that, she had another venture capital firm that was specifically focused on funding female founders, which I thought was super interesting. And just to also point out, Lizzie has taught here at FIDM and sits on a board of advisors for us as well. Lizzie, thank you for joining us. I would
Thank
like
you,
to ask,
Tom. It's so good to see you, and thanks to the whole FIDM team.
Oh, our pleasure. Thank you. I want to ask you a version of the same question I've asked everybody else as their first question. And that is, as an investor, is there a secret sauce you've seen across the companies in your multiple portfolios that get funding and then are successful?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, I know venture can be complicated in terms of understanding who the players are and what they focus on. I think it's important for everyone to know that every venture fund will have a different thesis around what sectors they want to back and what they actually believe makes a great investable business. And at M13, we specifically invest in areas where we see consumer behavior changing and transforming. So health, wellness, housing, food, finance, these are all areas where we see that there are a lot of consumer pain points and problems, and so transformation is happening. I think though, and that may be very different from another venture firm who wants to focus very specifically on SaaS or hardware or consumer brands. But there are certainly attributes that all VCs look to at an early stage, and those include milestones like, what's your vision? Do you have a compelling value proposition? Are you solving a real consumer problem? Have you found product market fit? Have you built the foundation for a scalable business model? And do you have the right operations and infrastructure, at least the plan if at early stage, depending, or is that already in play? And then are you testing and answering questions that are going to push you towards profitability or exit optionality? At the end of the day, investors invest in businesses that they think will bring a return. So we're looking for businesses that we think are good, investable businesses. And then I think there's another part of the secret sauce, which has been so on display here with this tremendous group of founders that you guys have brought together. And that's really on the qualitative side around leadership. And so any VC is going to look for founders and founding teams that have leadership qualities we know are critical at any stage of a business. And These attributes include things like resilience, self-awareness, truly deep knowledge and a love for their business inside and out, and real passion. So, take any one of our speakers today, but even Brittany, right? It takes incredible discipline and passion to pursue a side hustle, right? Here you are, full-time gig, you've got a side hustle because you see there's a problem that needs to be fixed. And also at the same time, it's not just a problem that needs to be fixed, you're transforming former modes of thinking, around reusable fashion market. If you'd said 15 years ago, go take someone else's veil and use it again, oh my goodness, like that's, that would have seemed strange and odd. But now fast forward, Brittany has been part of this incredible transformational change around the reusable fashion market, which I think all of us see as a great example of how founders and entrepreneurs can really tap into these leadership qualities and make real change happen in businesses.
I wonder if you picked up on one of the themes I picked up on in talking to everyone. All three of our founders, two of them credit PR for developing their business. One says if she had a little more money put toward PR and marketing, she'd be able to scale it even more. Is that struggle to not only get it, but then actually make use of it? Is that something you see consistently also?
It is. And gosh, always hard at the beginning when you are thinking about or working with limited resources and trying to understand where it is and how you amplify your brand value proposition. Look, every great business needs to reach a broad consumer market, and earned media is an incredible gift, right? It's, I think, one of the most interesting evolutions of a founder's marketing strategy in the past decade is sort of thinking about how do I get credentialing and credibility to create value for my brand. And so now what's incredible is that you have all these tools at your fingertips that you didn't have 10 years ago. It used to just be traditional press, by the way, which is great. Don't knock traditional press. But it's also influencers and affiliates and content creators. I mean, the power of social media that gives you permission, allows you to reach your target consumer with a targeted message. That's incredibly important. Having said that, I think what can be hard is focusing on what makes you differentiated at the beginning, right? So this is where a crisp value proposition and sort of a true understanding of what your brand is matters. I think all of the founders here so beautifully and crisply explain, what gets them out of bed every day? What's the DNA of their brand? And so how you manage that in the wild, as you say, is more than not a gift, but requires you to spend time thinking about that message as it is in the wild. And I think just a final thought on that is content creators, when they are your advocates and that aligns with your brand DNA, like double down on that every day if you can, because again, that credentialing and credibility is so critically important.
I'm going to, in the interest of time, kind of try to combine two questions here. So I think about Indy and her approach where she took no salary. And I have heard from several VC folks that they prefer you to take a salary to show that you've been built into the business and value the work that you're giving. So I'm curious about that piece, as it also then relates to the bigger question of what do you look for when you consider who to fund?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, everyone needs to put food on the table and pay their mortgage. I think what Indy did is remarkable, and it shows incredible discipline, which obviously is important, and real passion for what she was doing. But yeah, at the end of the day, if these are businesses. And so what we want to invest in as investors is businesses that are profitable, right? And so what you'll see and what I found is that maybe 10 or 15 years ago, there was less focus on profitability at a very early stage. I think what you'll see now is that institutional investors are looking for people who have at least an eye towards profitability and are thinking about it, and also are driving revenue and predictable revenue. So I think, yeah, at the end of the day, pay yourself a salary if you can. But also founders cannot be everything. You cannot be expected to know everything. I'm a little jealous that Indy's actually an accountant. I bet she saved a ton of money on accounting. But barter, network, hustle, I'll do this, I'll give you this advice if you do this for me at the beginning, and then figure out how to build the right operational infrastructure to support your business long-term.
I wish we had tons of time to go into several of these things. There's so many concepts to talk about, especially as it relates to when you talk about bringing in income and making revenue, right? There's the famous story of Amazon, right? Where he didn't make money for years and years and years and nobody really cared. The question though that I think is a little more prescient to today has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And when you think about Silicon Valley, there is a strong reputation that it just does not exist there. The diversity is not there. Equity is not really a consideration in the equation. Inclusivity is not that important. And I wonder, how does a woman, how does a person of color, a member of the queer community, overcome that first obstacle to getting in the door?
Yeah. I mean, let's not sugarcoat this one. It's really hard. And when you actually take a look at the stats, it can be really disheartening, right? To see what happens. And, in terms of women in venture and private equity, the numbers are abysmal. It's like under 2% of all partners are female. And when you actually look at the investable dollars that go into what you're talking about, it's going to take something like 200 years for there to be parity. However, having said that, there is what's nice is that there is movement on this. And so first and foremost, some practical advice for any founders on the Zoom. Just go out and network like crazy and seek out people who have done this, entrepreneurs you admire, people whose you want to get to know. The power of network is real, and it is incredibly important if you are actually looking both to set up a successful business and to find investors for your business. Secondly, seek out those institutions that are very explicitly supporting DE&I. There are programs like Techstars, Female Founders Fund, here in LA, the Veneta Project, Women's Founders Network, or Start Out, which are mentorship programs. And I would say seek out capital and advice from those who explicitly support DE&I. Not all money is green, and I know that's hard when you're out there trying to raise money and find great partners for your business, but that's the important part. You're looking for great partners, for you to give up a little bit of your passion and to decide to take on a capital partner is a really big decision. And so I'm really proud that M13 is a part of Pledge LA. We're a collective of LA-based tech companies and venture capital firms that are really committed to creating measurable change in DE&I and community engagement around this topic. And we're committed, amongst many others, to building a tech sector that is going to truly reflect the diversity of both Los Angeles, but also broadly our entire entrepreneurial ecosystem and venture ecosystem out there.
It's one of the reasons I was so excited you agreed to do this panel, because you have that specific focus in your work as a VC from the beginning, and of course now with M13 as well. My last question is a version of the question I've asked everybody else, but I'm also going to tie in one of the attendees' questions that came into this, who asked, when you say exit strategy, what do you mean by that? So I'd like you to define it as you see it, but also how important that then is from a funding point of view.
Yeah, it gets to, should you bring on a capital partner? And if so, what kind? Great question. Look, at the beginning, when you're starting a business, you're probably starting it because, like Indy, you have incredible passion or drive to make change, right? There's something there that is compelling you to do the bold, the risky, the crazy, unimaginable, starting of a business and living a dream. And you don't know what your exit strategy is going to be, right? It's just a hypothesis, and it's an idea on paper of what it could be. But if you're going to take venture capital money, you should know that your capital partner is looking for a big return. And usually more than not, that means some kind of exit. It could be an acquisition, it could be going public, it could be a merger, it could be happily and profitably running your company for years and never taking a third-party dime and enjoying the journey. So that's where I think it gets to two things. One, what's your mindset? What are you trying to achieve? Two, I think being really realistic about where you are in your life. I appreciated Brittany's point around being open to passing the torch and thinking about, who else could this move on to? For Trinidad, who's like in the throes of the beginning, and it's just such a love affair right now, it's thinking about kind of long-term, are there options here for where this could go? And so I guess be open-minded and think about those things as you evaluate whether or not bringing on a capital partner is right for you.
I appreciate that input and that answer to the broader question as well. I want to invite all of our panelists to turn their cameras on so that we can go to some of the Q&A that has been submitted. Indy has been furiously typing. I saw several questions have already been answered. So thank you for jumping in
No
on
problem. I was like, okay, I'll answer.
We just went into the exit strategy. We can answer, someone asked about a bunch of resources for people seeking investment. We'll provide those. I also want to point out, all of our attendees will get a link to watch this over again. So that will be a question that will come to everybody as well. There seems to be, though, a lot around the sustainability and the eco-friendliness of all of your businesses, which I think is sort of interesting. So I wonder if, maybe we'll start with Indy. The sustainability, eco-friendliness, how much does that play into your business as well as the marketability of your business?
Oh, I mean, tremendously so. I mean, I'm very proud to say that we are becoming Cosmos certified. That is on a product by product basis. And that goes to everything about how sustainable from farm to face, the ingredients, and then the processes, even going down to the vats that they're using to clean out the manufacturing machines. Because if you're using something that's not sustainable, not clean, and it's going to the water system, what is the impact? All the way to, what is our energy efficiency in the office, et cetera. Our paper on our boxes are plants. Forward Stewardship Guild, we're using glass, 20% PCR. We're moving to, I think it's 35 to 45% PCR plastic. But for the beauty industry, which I know a lot of people here are from, there is some difficulty when you come to pumps and things like that when it is not virgin plastic. So it's making sure that you are not giving up on the efficacy and the ability for the actual component to function, as well as what is the compatibility of that substrate with your ingredients and what's the goop that's in the jar. So it's a mix of that, but very important for us. We're looking into refillables, et cetera.
Trinidad, I wonder if you can sort of respond to the same question. We're actually preparing a panel, I believe it's in January, on waste. And I was shocked to learn that the denim industry is one of the largest wasters in so many ways. So how are you defining sustainability for your company, and what are you doing?
Yeah, number one, what I focus on is sustainability of people and repurposing of veterans and people that are struggling. And being made here in the US, it allows me to do that. Of course, it comes with the higher cost of labor and everything. We're at higher price points, but for me, that's one of the most important pieces. We source our denim now from Vidalia Mills, Louisiana, which they inherently are one of the most greenest mills in the world. They source E3 cotton from there in Louisiana and Texas, and they have purchased equipment to make sure that all of our processes are really eco-friendly. But in our space, everybody preaches the eco-friendly part and they forget about the human element. And that's one thing that I really want to fight to change, because if you take care of people, they'll take care of the environment. And a lot of people, especially in our industry, are focused on the sustainability up until the sale. Then after that, then what? Because a lot of water is wasted when you're washing the jeans, but nobody talks about that end of it. So I've called some people out respectfully, and you'll be hearing more and more from me, I promise. Because, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask sort of a similar version of that question. How much did you rely? I mean, sustainability is part of what you're selling, really. So how much did you push that in that early PR and those early marketing efforts? Brittany, are you hearing us?
Oh, that was for me.
Yes, sorry.
Yes, I did. We have used that recently. Honestly, it was very eye-opening moving from New York to Portland because I felt like in New York, honestly, the the concept of renting was more for saving money and saving the space in your closet. Whereas in Portland, everyone here is way more environmentally conscious and focused on that. So it's been really interesting actually living in two different places and seeing how brides relate to the environment differently. So we've definitely used that in our marketing in terms of, you know, by renting, you're saving the one-time use wear, you're saving the environmental cost of, you know, shipping things from overseas. So there's a lot that we do in what makes us environmentally friendly and keeping in that with our marketing messaging.
Lizzie, I saw several people asking about how much to spend on marketing and PR, and I wanted all of our founders gave great answers to that. I wonder from a VC point of view, though, what sort of percentage are you looking at that someone should be spending on PR and marketing their business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies by sector, but back to this point around building a business that's sustainable and driving towards profitability. You just want to be thoughtful around, I would say, first testing and understanding the economics of your business, right? So what are the acquisition costs for your customers? What are the best channels? What are you failing fast at and moving on from? We've heard LTV mentioned a couple of times. You know, I think it would be, you know, the holy grail is that the majority of your traffic comes from organic and you're spending very little on paid, and that essentially you're, you know, there's a kind of call it 5-to-1 LTV CAC to ratio. That's really hard, right? So, and so you have to nurture all these things, test a bunch of things to really understand what's going to work for you and where you're going to find your target consumer. I think the answer is show that you are taking the right bets and placing the right bets. And just start to get some, you know, scalable data around what channels are working for you and understand the economics behind them.
I guess with the limited time we have left, I just maybe we'll do a round robin and ask everybody one final question, and maybe it's not the final question. Maybe it's more just this. Listening to what we've heard today, is there a piece we've missed that you wish someone had told you at the beginning of your journey? Assuming someone is in those first maybe pre-seed phases. I see a question came in about pre-seed investment. So when you think about all of those pieces of the puzzle, what piece have we not talked about today that somebody needs to consider and maybe do a little more research on? And I'm just going to go in the order that we went in this afternoon. So Indy, we'll start with you.
You know, that's a great question. I'm like, oh my gosh. But one of the things I realized quickly, and I think it's important for people to know, and Lizzie, I'm interested to hear if you have the same feeling, is that when you think you need money, you need way more than you initially think you do. Like that is one of the things that I was like, oh, it's not going to be that much. And it's, if you think you need 2 million, you need 4. Like you just don't realize the cost of going into stores and what it costs to support those things. And, you know, you just think, again, if you build it, it comes. And that's just not the case. It's far more expensive when you go into retail than it is on direct to consumer, but then you also have to do the marketing. So I think that when you're looking for investors, be realistic of what it's going to take in terms of the financial contribution. And I agree with you, Lizzie, it's a partnership. I mean, that was one of the biggest things that I gained out of this.
I was going to go in a specific order, but because you've called out Lizzie, I've learned a lot.
Sorry, Lizzie.
So let's go to Lizzie next, just to see, you know, what your answer and how it compares with what Indy was saying.
Well, I agree with her point. You probably do need more money than you think if you're going to bring on a partner. But then this is just where I say go beyond capital on this one and really find the partner that can give you those unfair advantages around those milestones you know will actually help you build your business. You wouldn't be bringing on a capital partner if you didn't want to grow or expand or double down in some way. And so think about the ones who can actually really help you in the areas that aren't your strong suit, right? But again, I can't say this enough. Every founder is expected to be everything, and that's just not possible, right? And so I think my advice would be to fail fast and move forward, just one step at a time, and network like crazy. Of course, you don't know everything. Go talk to everyone you know, and then move with speed. That would be my advice.
Brittany, we will turn to you. What did we miss so far? What do you have to give?
Well, Lizzie stole mine a little bit, but I mentioned it earlier too, of just talk to as many people as you can. Don't be afraid to share your idea. I think maybe it's less now, but back in the day it was like keeping your idea secret and making sure you weren't sharing it and signing NDAs, and like it's so hard to start a business, and trust me, like no one's chasing after your idea and trying to steal it from under your feet. Like it's unique to you and what you want to do, and the more and more feedback you get from other entrepreneurs or investors at the very beginning, the better. When we started our business, or when I started, I was thinking I was going to rent bridal gowns in a brick and mortar boutique, and we have pivoted to accessories online only. So only by talking to other people did we kind of come to that realization. So definitely recommend that.
Trinidad, what is your thoughts? What have we missed?
And I agree with what Lizzie was saying initially, to find like the right partners. For me, I partnered up with my first business partner was the factory owner where I produced my denim. So I was able to stretch every penny that I had to develop and get stuff made, lower minimums all across the board, and really find people that are smarter than you in all areas. Like, right, you can't do it all. I was pretty fortunate. My brother is a CFO at a company, and he has a master's degree in finance. So he handles all the financial side. And my managing partner now, who was a sales rep for several years in the industry. Again, I'm not very good at selling, so I got him to take care of that. And I just tell him, just give me a box of crayons, put me in the back in the corner, and I'll be happy. So and then the financial part, to me, still I struggle with it, like fully understanding, because I'll say I need, X amount, and then I burn through it in like less than a month, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm horrible at this. So,
I could keep talking to you all for so long on all of this. I can't appreciate. We've already gone a couple minutes over, so I feel bad. But I appreciate all of you sharing your stories today. As I listen to you, I hear the importance of PR, the importance of marketing, the importance of your network, of knowing what you know and bringing your skills to the table, and understanding what you don't know, and either trying to learn that or asking for help. And I think if people could take that away from today, they'll be on a great pathway, and it's thanks to you for sharing that. So we appreciate you all. I want to let everybody else know about a couple upcoming events before you take off, and that is our next panel is on the 10th of November. It's the social media future of, where we'll be looking at the use of TikTok and several other platforms out there. In addition, on 12/8, we'll be looking at the future of e-commerce as we go into the holiday season. That'll be an important discussion to have. And then in January, we're looking at the future of waste.